Hello, everybody. I'm Nicholas Snow, your favorite promo homo, and this is the Snowstorm, where in 2025 I'm very focused on amplifying voices of the resistance. This live broadcast was specifically slated for today, January 21st at 5 p.m. Pacific time, because it is 24 hours after you know what happened and you know who is occupying the White House. And I have to say, many people are shocked, others are shell-shocked. Some people are closed off and shutting down, while others are rising up in resistance. Many of us are dazed and confused. Evil does occupy the White House. What can we do about it? My guests who are coming up on the show, Dr. Ronni Sanlo and Dr. Kelly Watson, have been activists and resistors for quite some time. But Dr. Ronni Sanlo's life was incredibly impacted by the crusade of Anita Bryant. And Anita Bryant passed away this past December. Not many people even knew about it at the time until about a week ago when major entertainment tabloids started reporting the fact that she had died. And I started wondering about that story and the influence that Anita had on my friend's life and her family's life and so many other lives. And I was asking myself, does this sort of hate or ignorance and manifestation of it create truth, light, and justice? And one could say that Anita Bryant's campaign really did transform and galvanize the LGBTQ civil rights movement. So that's one of the questions I'm asking myself as we go into this new year. And as I said, as you read in the opening of the show, if you're involved in the resistance anywhere in the world, particularly in the United States, I want to hear from you. And coming up, we're going to hear from my special guest, and we're going to have a free-flowing conversation after this. I'm Nicholas Snow, and I'd like to thank Willie Ryan and John Pascal, owners of 849 Restaurant and Lounge, for their support of Promo Homo TV from the beginning. I was honored to work at the restaurant the first 4 years they were open, during which time I was inspired to write this. At 849 Restaurant and Lounge, sitting in the lounge area at a high top with a view of the grand corridor, the main dining area, is truly like starring in one play while simultaneously watching another, both with fabulous scenery and lighting, a gorgeous cast, fascinating characters, and exciting plot twists, complete with movie stars and paparazzi, not to mention fabulous eats. I call it reality dinner theater. See and be seen while starring in your own scene. Perhaps we'll have a scene together. Make your reservations at 849.com.
Hi, it's Brad Furr, a proud media sponsor of Promo Homo TV, and I'm the owner of K-Gay Palm Springs and Gay Desert Guide. We just wanted to say thank you and thanks to Nicholas Snow for what he does. K-Gay Radio is a worldwide streaming service of great dance hits that you can listen to anywhere, anytime. And when you're planning your visit to Greater Palm Springs, use gaydesertguide.lgbt.
Ask your smart speaker to play KGAY.
Hi, my name is Matt Scalarud, president of Pink Media, and a very proud and long-term supporter of Promo Homo TV. And so at Pink Media, we've been working with companies large and small, including destinations such as this, to kind of help them target and reach the LGBT community online. And so we've been doing this for almost 30 years. And what's more important is that, it started out with banner ads and email campaigns, and now we've morphed into social media and video, and it's all about storytelling. So if you have a story and a message that you'd like to get out to a very targeted yet broad audience online, reaching the LGBT community, give us a call or reach us at www.pinkmedia.lgbt. Thanks.
The LGBTQ Community Center of the Desert is the only Coachella Valley organization dedicated to meeting the diverse needs of all LGBTQ+ individuals. From our Palm Springs McDonald Wright building to the Center Coachella, the Scott-Hines Behavioral Health Clinic, and the Community Food Bank, our mission comes to life by making meaningful connections to resources and to community that contribute to LGBTQ+ people's health and happiness. For more information, visit thecentercv.org.
And welcome back. So if you are watching live and you have a question or a comment, I can curate those questions and comments directly into the broadcast. Unless you are watching on Instagram, I don't have the ability to put your comment on screen, but I can see them over to my right. And I want to give a shout out to some of my Instagram viewers, including our gal pal, fellow lesbian and photographer, Corey. So thank you for tuning in. Also, I'm going to put this on the screen and leave it there because I want you to be able to watch this show on a regular basis. The best place to do that is on the YouTube channel. And this show doesn't produce itself. You can support it for as little as $3 a month. All that information will be on screen. And I also just want to say, it's my goal that almost every day as the year progresses, I'm going live at 5 p.m. And more often than not, I would like to be producing the Snowstorm and Amplifying Voices of the Resistance. That's not going to happen immediately because I need everybody around the world who's resisting to learn of this platform and to reach out to me so I can bring them on the show. I do have some very special guests that are waiting to come on, and I'm going to go ahead and bring them in right now. Let me just click on that button and this button. It is Dr. Ronni Sanlo and Dr. Kelly Watson, or to me, Ronni and Kelly. Hey, ladies.
Hi, Nicholas.
So, someone asked me today, how are you? And I said, I feel a little bit bruised. And they said, why? And I said, well, because of what's going on in our country politically. And the person just shut me down. And they said, I don't have those conversations. I'm not paying attention, and I'm not talking about it. I'm not disrespecting that perspective. However, it just punctuated for me the importance of amplifying the voices of those who want to remain engaged, who can remain engaged, who have the emotional and spiritual bandwidth to stay engaged. And I know the two of you are going through your own journey about personal safety and all of this. So I guess my first question is, how are you responding to what's going on?
Well, I'm trying to read as much as I can and stay present and take care of myself, which is less than I used to read, but I think a semi-time out for a while is okay. And yet I feel like we really have to stay engaged, because one of the most dangerous aspects of this to me is 30% of the country unwilling to look at the historical precedents of people like Trump, that he is telling us in every way he wants to be a dictator. He's going to shut down the Constitution and shut down our democratic institutions. And a friend of ours asked us yesterday, well, why can't you just go along for a while? And when somebody tells you they want to be a brutal dictator and they admire people like Orbán and Putin, there's going along is just only an option for these people, white, heterosexual people.
And Ronni?
I'm feeling this sense of anger on one side. I mean, I've had great anger before as an activist. In fact, years ago, I was called a militant homosexual. And actually, I'm feeling angry now, but actually, I'm feeling more betrayed, I think, than anything else. People in our lives
Your screen has frozen from my end, so I'm not sure why. Oh, well, there we are. We've unfrozen. So start with people in our lives.
Okay, people in our lives who I knew were going to vote for Trump. Somehow it didn't feel real to me until the inauguration, which I did not watch. And now the people who did vote for him, who were past tense, my friends, are gloating today on Facebook. And when I think about, they're gloating because Biden has declared the Equal Rights Amendment to be the 28th Amendment, and they don't like that, or now there's the ban on transgender people serving in the military. That's happening now. Trump has revoked the federal DEI guidelines, the diversity, equity, and inclusion guidelines, and he's rescinded the executive order aiming to that prevents discrimination based on gender identity and sexual orientation. So, I've been telling people for years, the last several years, to pay attention. And now it's happening exactly as we knew it was going to happen. And then with Musk standing up there and doing a Hitler salute, I mean, what do people think the future is it's going to be rocky for us. It's going to be very rocky. So how do we keep our sanity, which is really the important part, keeping our sanity and keeping our hearts, and still be able to speak out and resist without obeying in advance? So that's kind of what I think about now, and think more and more about Timothy Snyder's book called On Tyranny. I mean, if you haven't read it, I highly suggest it. It'll take you about 20 minutes to read the entire book. It's tiny. But
Timothy Snyder, On Tyranny.
Yeah.
So I won't say that I'm holding on to friends who voted for Trump. I was wrestling about what to do with the really close family members who voted for Trump. And here's kind of where I landed. There are some people who are really evil, and there are others who are just tragically misinformed and who believe the false information that they've been fed by platforms such as Fox News. And so for me, if I were to have cut them out of my life, which I was tempted to do, I would be not giving them the opportunity to perhaps see what really happens and understand that what they've been told wasn't true. Who knows what's going to happen in that certain environment. But it is important that we rise up, that we act up, and that we do what we can. And I wanted to have both of you on for a couple of reasons. You've both been transformed by significant events in our history. And you have a new book out, which we'll get to, that really celebrates people in history. But Ronni, I was wondering if you could, not incredibly briefly, but clearly we could talk for a long time on it, but if you would basically inform our audience, bring them up to speed on the influence of Anita Bryant in your life.
Okay, great. Thanks, Nicholas. When I came out in 1979, I lived in Florida. I'm from Florida. And in 1977, Anita Bryant was doing her anti-gay thing in Miami. That's where she started. And she built it and began the movement. 1978, we know in California, there was the Briggs Initiative, Prop 6. Horrible laws all over the country that were meant to keep LGBTQ people from being teachers. They were meant to keep us out of the classrooms. That's what Anita Bryant was doing, was trying to keep us away from children. In 1978, also, the Florida legislature honored her by creating the anti-gay parenting laws. In 1979, I lived in Orlando and I came out as a lesbian. And I was married and had 2 children. They were 3 and 6. And my husband and I were trying to get half custody. We were going to share custody of the kids, and that's what we had agreed on. But we got to court. The judge was a friend of his parents, my ex-husband's parents, and the judge invoked Anita Bryant's name and gave me 0 custody of the children. And I could see them 1 day a week, and that was all, every 2 weeks. And by the time they were 9 and 12, they didn't want to see me anymore because they were told that I work with people with AIDS and therefore they're going to get AIDS and die. They were told I have AIDS and because I'm a lesbian, and they get sick and die. And I didn't see my kids again until they were in their 20s. And so my anger towards Anita Bryant, and that was where the militant homosexual piece came in. The anger that I had towards her, because I wasn't yet looking at pieces of myself also, I have to say. But the anger that I had towards her fueled me into this movement where I couldn't keep a job because I was so focused on being on radio, on being on television. Nobody in Florida was speaking out for lesbian and gay rights at the time. I became the executive director of the Florida Task Force. It was the only gay organization in the country with a paid lobbyist, a full-time paid lobbyist. So, I was doing this work, losing job after job after job, living on the streets because I had no money, because many of us activists had no money because we were spending all of our time being activists. And my anger towards her it just kept me going, but it was just this awful pain in my head and in my heart that I had because of my hatred for Anita Bryant. And I finally got to a point in my life when I began to understand that, one of the primary things that she did, the primary thing, I believe, for which I'm grateful, is that she solidified the gay rights movement like nothing else in this country. Stonewall in 1969 was an important thing in that it created pride, and every year we had pride. But Anita Bryant's work forced all of us to start looking at our rights in some very specific ways, legislatively, specifically in the courts. And her work is really what helped the gay rights movement begin going forward, and really it grew up. We had to grow up and look at what was happening around the country. And that's when a lot of our organizations were born. Lambda Legal Defense, Gay Rights National Lobby, which ultimately became Human Rights Campaign, the National Gay and Lesbian Task Force. So over time, I began to understand several things. That was the most important one, how important she was to the gay rights movement. The second thing I began to understand was she was a mom, and she felt like she was doing the right thing in protecting her children and wanted to protect other people's children too. A really screwed up way to do it, no doubt. But I think that's part of from where she was coming. And the next thing I realized was the space that she was taking up in my head and in my heart. I really needed to free up all that space. I needed to put other things in my head and in my heart that were lovely and not full of hate. And I got to a point where I was able to forgive her, and to be able to let her go. And, after all these years, the best thing I can say is I outlived her, and that makes me happy.
Well, just to throw some information, you shared with me this morning that you're going on a mother-daughter cruise, celebrating a milestone in your daughter's life. And so basically, in terms of relationships with your kids, it had a happy evolution over time without I mean, filled with tragedy and heartbreak, of course. Kelly, when and how did you become politicized and activated in the fight at any level for any issue?
Well, my first political involvement was really in the field of mental health and substance abuse, and I was very I ran a center for women, and it was very apparent that women's recovery did not receive the attention that most of the models for recovery were drawn on men as clients. So that you know, gave me awareness about the fact that you actually could take action that might have a significant result, because mental health parity came out in the insurance industry, came out of that. And really that was sort of my focus for most of my life until I met Ronni about 17 years ago, and she educated me in what it was to be an activist and drugged me to rallies and things like that. And I began to understand on a much deeper level what my responsibility as a lesbian is. I didn't come out until I was 32 years old, and I didn't know when I was younger. So, I hadn't had the abuse of a lot of gay and lesbian people had endured. So I came late to the game, but I'm like a dog on a bone when I get on something.
This past Saturday, I was videoing the People's Rally at the downtown Palm Springs Park, put on by Courageous Resistance and Indivisible of the Desert, and I was also asked to speak. And and by the way, that entire rally will be broadcasting on Promo Homo TV, so stay tuned. You'll be able to see it in the coming days or week or so. But in my remarks, one of the things I asked from the stage is how many of you have left X Twitter? And people cheered and raised their hands. And how many of you have left Facebook? And people cheered and raised their hands. And I said, how many of you are on Blue Sky? And lots of people cheered and raised their hands. And I said, well, I don't mean to shock you, but I'm staying in these places, and I'm also now giving Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk money. And here's why. So Facebook had eliminated my ability to broadcast live because of a false report against my page. The only way I could access customer service was to get the blue verified checkmark. I got the blue verified checkmark. I was able to interact with customer service. I was able to get my video privileges reinstated, and now I can broadcast this show into that environment. I can also broadcast onto X as a paid subscriber. And the analogy that I used at the rally was, think of Radio Free Europe, or those times when airplanes have flown behind enemy lines to drop supplies. And yes, there's a lot of darkness. And if these places are going to be filled with misinformation and lies and hatred, we can counteract that. And so I'm not leaving the platforms. I'm broadcasting into them. And so one of my regular viewers wants to know how many of you are on Amazon. I don't know exactly what you mean by the question, but I do know that Ronni and Kelly's books are available on Amazon, as are mine and my products. I don't broadcast on Amazon. Speaking of which, let's talk about your book. I'm going to bring in a photo of the cover. I am the director, the producer, the executive producer, and the host. I can't say, all right, control booth, please show graphic, but I can show it myself because I'm fancy like that. So here we go. LGBTQ History Alive. And let me get rid of that. And it's not showing the whole title, but basically you two had this amazing podcast for a year or more, and you interviewed really amazing historic lesbians, and now you have come up with the transcripts and you've put them in a book, and all of that is amazing. And one of the things we really know is that it is our history that is going to inform us and inspire us. So I was wondering if you could both share a bit about the importance of this history and your book.
Well, I'll talk for a moment about the book. We did this podcast. We did 52 episodes. We did one a week for a year. And we wanted to interview people who we knew over time had been our heroes and sheroes and they-roes, and were still alive. And many of the people we interviewed were in their 80s and 90s, and many more were in their 70s. So, and in fact, someone we were going to interview died before we could get the interview done. And so, the point is we wanted to get these people on a podcast, interviewed, and learn about their lives while they were still able to share their lives with us. And then we took each one of those transcripts, and I took it out of transcript style. It's in transcript style, but it's not as ugly as it looks like when it comes back from Zoom. And each person has their own page with their picture, with the transcript. And we had financial supporters. And so the people who supported those specific folks are listed, as well as our references. If one of the guests talked about a book, if they had a book coming out or just out or something important to them, then we put that reference and that website in their chapter. So it's really quite amazing. I'm very proud of it. I think we did great work on it. And it's for sale now on Amazon.
I've just pasted a link to that in the chat, and also the text associated with this video on all platforms has a link to the book on Amazon. One of the things I've learned on my show is I could talk for hours with everyone, but I just would love to keep the shows to around 30 minutes, and we're about there. I was wondering if either one of you have anything that you would like to add to our conversation today.
Oh, I would just like to say one of the things that almost every person we interviewed on the podcast, and I'm reminded of that today, is that to take the time to take care of ourselves, but to not give up the fight, that to be present, to be open, to be even more out than we were before if we can, and to bond with one another, make stronger communities. So that's our plan right now.
Right. And if you don't mind, I'm going to take a 2-second plug.
Take as long as you want.
Okay. A second book that I just finished is, I'm the founder of the Lavender Graduation that's held on college and university campuses. And this is the 30-year anniversary of Lavender Graduation. And I just wrote a book that gives details on how to host a Lavender Graduation in your community, at your local community centers, for people who didn't have a Lavender Graduation, and to bring the older population back in and to honor them for having graduated from college or even high school with a certificate.
And that's just the tip of the iceberg of what you two have to offer. And throughout the show, RonniSanlo.com has been displaying below your fabulous faces, so people can find that and more. So my viewer has explained that she's on X for free, fighting against Musk and the misinformation. She's mentioning Amazon because there's a boycott of corporations and supporters of MAGA. Once again, I'm going to stay in these spaces for now and fight within them, and amplify all kinds of people and see what they're doing and why. But as usual, I'm just so grateful for your support of my work. I'm glad we're in this together. It would be a very lonely process without you.
Thank you, Nicholas.
Thank you, Nicholas.
We appreciate you as well.
Yeah, you show us the way.
Well, we're all in this together. And with Ronni Sanlo and Kelly Watson, I'm Nicholas Snow. Please reach out to me if you're part of the resistance, and I will amplify your voice. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
In a safe place, I got room to breathe. Been a long chase, but at last I'm free. mountaintops. So I made some plans, some dreams to catch, to promised lands, to find my path, see the planet from greater heights. I have found a place out of time and space, far from city lights, up on greater heights. See the blue sky, feel